Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, comment if you like current reviews and also historic reviews. We hope to become the largest archive of wrestling audio reviews available on the internet today and certainly on YouTube. But that's going to take a while, and we need your support. This is the NXT review for the 13th of May in the year 2020, and we open with Mauro Ranallo, Beth Phoenix, and Tom Phillips. They look to be the new NXT announced team. Not a bad team. I actually think Beth Phoenix is probably one of the top three announcers, commentators in the world right now. The only people that I think compete with her at any level are Tony Schiavone of AEW and oddly enough, Madison Rain over on Impact. And I know there's going to be people. What about Jim Ross? I'm sorry, he's missing something. And I'm not that big a fan of Mauro Ranallo now. I used to be earlier in his career, but he's become a bit of a cliche under these circumstances. So those are my picks for who I enjoy listening to, who doesn't drive me nuts. Kevin Kelly in there too from New Japan, but since they're not running shows right now, they don't pop into my head. Anyway, we go to the opening of the program, and they open with a tag title contest. So Imperium, Marcel Bartel, and Fabian Archner versus Matt Riddle and Timothy Thatcher for the championships. We do get new champions out of this. Not really a fan of that, although I am a fan of the angle that resulted from it. The Imperium thing, I guess, because I'm only coming back to NXT over the last 3 or 4 months, maybe I missed the rise of Imperium. I don't see them as championship caliber. I see them as a good team, but missing something, and them beating Riddle and Thatcher just doesn't make sense. However, the turn at the end of the match is something that I do support, so it's kind of one of those 6 of one, half dozen of another. In comparison, by the way, AEW wins yet again in the ratings war, at least, or in the head-to-head battle, at least in my estimation. I'd love to see them go head-to-head with SmackDown or Raw. I think they could win there too eventually, as they're either AEW is a really good product or WWE's dropped off with every brand. I don't know which is true. Maybe both are true. Anyway, Thatcher and Bartel started the match with some great grappling maneuvers. Thatcher probably maybe toss up him and Zack Sabre Jr. of New Japan, probably 1 and 2 when it comes to the best mat grapplers in the world. And on a given day, I think, or current day anyway. I think it goes back and forth. But anyhow, Bartel begins brawling with Riddle at ringside. Riddle is run away from his corner. Thatcher trying to make a tag, and Thatcher seemed annoyed. Riddle wasn't there. Riddle eventually tags, and Bartel gets the knee up. Riddle goes for a senton, and Riddle looks to be in trouble. Show goes to commercial. The challenger is working over Riddle upon return. Riddle's trying to create separation, and he gives Bartel a monkey flip, and then through the monkey flip, he crashes into Thatcher. Thatcher's less than happy with this. Thatcher grows angry with the continued miscommunication in the contest, and he walks out on Riddle. Match becomes 2-on-1 here. Now, I get it. For long-term fans, you'll remember the WrestleMania 5 Brainbuster Strikeforce match with the Rick Martel turn. That's what they were going for here. Of course, that's, 31 years ago, so I feel old. But, I mean, that's what they're going for here. I still think if you really want to send it home, you wait and have Thatcher turn as part of the actual finish to drive home that he cost his own partner the championships because of the miscommunications. But that's just a stylistic point change. In any way, Riddle fights off the double team, but obviously he's outmatched, outnumbered. Uppercut, Doomsday Device combination called the European Bomb, and Bartel covers Riddle for the win. Post-match interview, Mackenzie Mitchell asked Thatcher about walking out. Thatcher cutting a very basic promo, and they get into a pull-apart brawl, and it's kind of one of those, really basic things. Then we move on to a women's match, which wasn't too bad, although interesting to see Tegan Knox against Indy Hartwell. The reason I'm finding it interesting is because Hartwell was, at least in part, a NXT, not an NXT, an AEW standout at least a few weeks ago. We had her opportunity. But Hartwell gains early advantage with the aggressive start. Hartwell goes into an attempted springboard, but Knox catches her and gives her a choke slam. I don't know why, but Marwanella calls her Lady Kane for this. Anyway, Knox with a cannonball in the corner, and she hits a crossbody off the top. Delivers a Shining Wizard for the win. Too bad. I mean, I think Indy Hartwell has something. I'd like to see them use her as at least a mid-level female competitor. And I think she's got something unique and different in terms of look, but also in terms of talent. And I can't put my finger on it, but something tells me she'll be reasonably bigger at a point. Anyway, Rhea Ripley pre-taped promo says that WrestleMania didn't grow her the way she wanted to. She said Charlotte Flair winning sickened her, and mentioned Io Shirai not being able to get the job done. And then Ripley said she would be the person to bring the title back to NXT. And if she had to go through Io Shirai to do it, she'll do it. Ripley warned Flair that she's not finished with her. We've only just begun, she says. And then we cut back to Matt Riddle, and he's video chatting with William Regal. Regal says he's booked an opportunity with Thatcher for the main event of the show. Thatcher busts in and attacks Riddle. They continue fighting all the way around. So, Jake Atlas up next defeats Tony Nese in the Group A match for the interim Cruiserweight Championship. Couple of things. I'm glad Jake Atlas won here. It would be stupid for him not to win after the segments they gave him in the previous few weeks. But at the same time, poor Tony Nese. Dude's never really gotten a break. And I think it's a case of him having what I tend to call Dean Malenko syndrome. Really good in the ring, decent enough body, but he doesn't translate charisma well enough to get a real opportunity. Dean Malenko went through that in the 90s. I think Nese is going through it here. Anyway, Atlas pins Nese after a cartwheel DDT. Atlas improved to 2-1 in the tournament, and Nese is winless with a record of 0-3. Nese was playing spoiler as he came into the match with a losing record of 0-2. Byron Saxton interviews Atlas before the match. Atlas says that he hoped Drake Maverick wins to force a tiebreaker between them, but Atlas then said he had to focus on his match. Atlas says take care of business in his match with Nice. I mean, it's a very basic promo. I would have liked to have seen something different, although raising the idea of Drake Maverick still being in the tournament, I think is good. I think Drake Maverick has something, and I know he's been fired, but something tells me they'll bring him back because he's been one of the brighter spots of NXT, which has been a rather sluggish program over the last month or so. Anyway, Atlas countered Nice with some flips and a cartwheel. Obviously, Atlas with the gymnastic background, really good athlete, and shows here. Nice cuts him off when Atlas begins grandstanding. They trade strikes. Atlas hits a step up Enziguri, gets a near fall out of it. Atlas bleeds slightly from a cut near the eye. Nice trips Atlas up and then went to the turnbuckles. Nice talking trash and paid for it. And Atlas knocked him off the buckle. Atlas stood on the top buckle and did a cartwheel onto the ropes and into a DDT. Atlas covered Nice for the pin. Kyle O'Reilly returned to the show in the form of a Zoom call. I like the fact that they're using Skype and Zoom and different aspects. Amazingly, the sound quality is not bad considering it's a technological thing. So I think now what we've learned through the pandemic in a positive way is that a guy or girl who is on the shelf with an injury, we can Zoom them in, we can Skype them in, we can give them promo time so they're not lost. I think that actually helps the sport overall for everyone involved. Anyway, Undisputed Era jokes around a bit. Then we have a Karrion Kross and Scarlett video package. They hype the characters. I mean, people like it. I'm rather ambivalent. Kross has never really done it for me. And it's kind of a Bray Wyatt-ish, Undertaker-ish, Kane-ish character presentation. I'll give it more time, but I'm not into the theatrics thing. It's just not for me. Then we go to a vignette with Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. They talk about, Kai feeling she was undervalued and going through injuries and etc. Nice enough, and fills time well. Isaiah Swerve Scott, in an interview, cuts a relatively cocky promo. Scott said he can't win a match in the tournament, then he should go home and stay there, and that he should quit wrestling. And, he's taking shots at people with losing records. DX is backstage. They basically talk about and joke around about the In Your House franchise from 25 years ago. Good gosh, that was 25. That's a quarter century ago. I feel old now. Oh my gosh. Anyway, they're talking about 25 years ago is the first In Your House. Road Dogg pops up out of nowhere. Talks about Hunter being dropped in pig poo, which is part of the early In Your Houses. Anyway, since everyone has to stay home anyway, we might as well present a takeover in your house. This is considered a big announcement. I don't know that it's big, but it's an announcement. Cameron Grimes up next with Finn Balor. Surprised to see Grimes go over here, although it makes sense. Finn Balor is a guy that, never really recovered from the, 2016 injury the night after he won the Universal title. Poor guy. I was lucky enough to call one of his first matches in the U.S. and really cool dude. Like, it's always cool to watch him on TV, but I honestly think he was better off in Japan because he never has really hit here. I'd actually be interested to see him in an environment like something like an AEW or MLW would be wonderful if they had the money, and I know they don't. I get that, but just seeing him in a more wrestling-centered U.S. product, I really wonder what he could do. Anyway, Grimes pins Balor after Damian Priest interferes using the expanding nightstick. I wonder if that means Priest is the one that jumped Balor a few weeks ago. Maybe that's where they're going. And obviously he reveals himself to be, and then they jump things forward. Grimes goes for the cave-in double stomp at the on-step, but Balor sidesteps him. Balor in control for a few moments until Grimes cuts him off. We go to commercial. We come back from commercial, and Grimes with a lariat for near fall. Grimes then begins to taunt Balor, and Balor fires up, and then a penalty kick by Balor, and Damian Priest climbs over the guardrail. Balor uses a sling blade on the floor and rolls Grimes back into the ring. Balor was getting ready to win, and Priest interferes. Grimes gave Balor the cave-in and covers him for the pinfall. Nice enough match. I mean, if you're a Finn Balor fan, or if you're a Cameron Grimes fan, worth going out of your way to see. Definitely a cool deal. But at the same time, I think it was too early in the feud to have the split off with Damian Priest unless you had no intention of Grimes doing anything with Balor other than getting put over by him. Jack Gallagher, who ends up winning this match and advancing to a record of 1-2, defeats Swerve Scott, who is also 1-2, in a Group B match for the is in for the tournament anyway. So Scott hit from behind by Tony Nese, injuring his ribs. Scott then he enters the ring, getting even for the earlier verbal jabs. Gallagher immediately goes to work on the attack, but could only muster to get 2 counts, and then Gallagher hits a series of hard shots, and Scott hits his opponent in the corner, taking a nasty bump on his head when Scott moves out of the way, and that's the bump on the head is for Gallagher. Scott hit a nice kick and gets a near fall. Gallagher catches Scott in the guillotine choke attempt, and Scott is able to get out of it with power and temporarily, but he gets caught again, and a knee strike by Gallagher and a suplex attempt. Gallagher follows up with a Judas Effect style spinning elbow strike to pick up the pin and the win. Kind of surprising. They've been pushing Swerve Scott for a little bit now, and I don't know. It's just, you would think you give the rub to a guy who, and this is a problem I see in wrestling booking and development everywhere. To me, the newer a guy is, the more he should be protected, the more he should win. The reason is, if the guy who's got years of TV behind him, or if the girl who's got years of TV behind her was worth as much as you think, then they would have gotten over with the crowd to the point where we wouldn't be seeing them in these underneath matches. I always lean towards pushing the new talent because you never know what catches on. Anyway, Caden Carter submits Aliya. Really a throwaway match for this late in the show. I get, to me, that's kind of insulting in the sense of nothing wrong with Caden Carter. I like Aliya as a character, but they haven't developed her. But this late in the program, you'd think they would be watching for the trends of AEW, putting on better contests and protecting things here. Of course, maybe in comparison, there was no other place to put it in the format. That could be it too. Carter is working over Aliya's legs early, looking for submissions. Carter hits a bottom rope drop kick, but the advantage doesn't last for her. Robert Stone comes out and is taking notes and kind of overseeing. I'm not really sure I know much about Stone, but anyhow, um, you know, then we see Carter with a um, kind of a modified Indian Deathlock getting the victory for herself. Um, Dinner with the Gargano segment's up next. Man, Johnny Gargano, if the main roster meant anything anymore, he belongs on a mainstream program. He is just such a good talker. His wife is too. Candice LeRae is too. I get why they have them here, but at the same time, man, if Raw and SmackDown were programs that were moving forward, Johnny Gargano would add so much to the programs. But if he wants to be a standout here, that's awesome. Anyway, um, they're basically fawning over each other and patting each other on the back for achievements. Uh, and then Gargano calls himself a 5-star classic, and Candice LeRae talks down to Mia Yim, basically says she's had too many chances, and Gargano has words for Keith Lee and says, that the Bask in the Glory thing is just a gimmick, just a marketing ploy, but that the fans will eventually turn on anyone, including him. There's also an interesting, dynamic to where Gargano is moving forward, but at the same time stuck in the past of trying to defend himself. Main event is Riddle versus Thatcher. If you like mat wrestling as much as I do, this is worth going out of your way to see. Probably the best match of the month thus far for mat wrestling related stuff. Anyway, so they basically have a sparring session as if it's a catch style match, MMA match. Striking in here. Both then counter each other repeatedly until Riddle catches Thatcher with a kick that sent Thatcher to the outside. After the break, Thatcher has an advantage with an ankle pick, and then Riddle hits a gut wrench suplex, leading to Thatcher hitting a nice belly to belly suplex. Belly to belly suplex off the ropes. And we do see the foot stomp happen again. Thatcher continues to work on Riddle on the ground, and knees to the side, and shin locks and the like. The grappling looks good just because it looks like a real fight. If you've never seen Riddle and Thatcher from their Evolve days, seriously, go subscribe to WWN just to watch those matches. If you have seen them, you know that you're in for a treat with this feud. If you haven't, it's worth the $10 just to go and seek out that specific stuff from Evolve. Thatcher hits several kicks, and I'm sorry, my acid reflux is not being friendly today. Riddle hits the bro to sleep following a float over. Thatcher reverses it into a Fujiwara armbar, and then there's a one-arm powerbomb by Riddle. Thatcher turns Riddle into an armbar again, and eventually a knee bar attempt, but which looks to be the end. Riddle works into a position where he's able to pin Thatcher from the knee bar, and it's more just a weight leverage maneuver. Thatcher attacks and repeatedly locks in an armbar against Riddle, and Riddle keeps tapping. Thatcher maniacally looks in the camera. So, Obviously they're going to do battle several more times. Probably, like I said, the best match of the month, technically. Um, it's it 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 shows that they do have guys on the roster who can go, and more than anything, it's a reminder that competitive map-based style can be compelling. I think with an audience in the arena, this would have gotten over where the critics and the more creatives, your Vince Russos, your to an extent Bruce Pritchard's, your various other people who push story over in ring action. I think these matches, when done well, call that thought into question. I am often more a character driven person, a story driven person than a in ring person, because in ring a lot of guys are bland, but these two prove that you can do an in ring closing segment and have it lead to things being a big deal in the next week. I would love to see both of these folks go at it next week. Anyway, there are 4 matches set for next week's NXT, and on paper they all look decent to very good. Rhea Ripley versus Io Shirai should be good. Roderick Strong versus Dexter Lumis. I don't get Lumis, so maybe that'll be good. I mean, Roddy's always pretty entertaining. Cruiserweight Championship tourney, Kushida versus Drake Maverick. Everyone's pulling for Maverick. And El Hijo de Fantasma versus Akira Tozawa. If they're given time, should be decent. However, they're not, Fantasma just, I don't get it yet. And Tozawa, if we wanted him to be taken seriously, then I don't know. Maybe don't job him out on Raw. Anyway, in any event, this has been the NXT review for the 13th of the month of May 2020. We'll be back with more stuff, and we will be adding at some point this week or early next week a UFC section. So we're going to cover all combat sports here on the channel. So look forward to that as well. In any event, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.